Hey everyone, Chris here. In this video, I'm going to talk about fasted training. So what it is, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and whether you should use it. So fasted training is basically what it sounds like. You fast and then you train. So you don't eat anything and then you go and do some exercise, do some running, do some cycling, whatever it is you're doing. So you can do this at any time of day, but typically the way it's implemented is you have a meal, you go to sleep, you get up on a morning, you don't have any breakfast, and you just go straight out for your run or your bike ride or whatever. And it's easier to do this way because you naturally wake up on a morning, and because you haven't eaten anything since the night before, your carbohydrate stores are depleted, they're pretty empty, and so when you go out and train, your body has to rely on its fat stores. Okay, so why would we want to do this? Why is it good? Well, a number of reasons. Number one is that the body can use both carbohydrate and fat to produce energy, and we have a lot more fat than we have carbohydrate. So if we're looking at longer distance events, so things like marathons, things like long format triathlon or multi-hour bike races, then we want to burn as much fat as possible because we've only got about 90 minutes of carbohydrate. Hence, when you're running a marathon, all of the elites are constantly drinking their sports drink to try and replenish their carbohydrates. So if we can train the body to use a higher percentage of fat, because it uses fat and carbohydrate at the same time, if we can get it to use more fat, then we're not going to deplete those carbohydrate stores as quickly. So the idea is that we deplete the body's carbohydrate stores usually overnight, and then we go out and we force the body to use fat because it hasn't got any carbohydrates. And when we do that, the body becomes better at utilizing those carbohydrates, so it can release that energy quicker because it takes a long time to release fat. But we can train the body to release it quicker so that we can use more, and that will make our performance better in the longer distance events. So if you're training for something like a 5K or a 10K or something that only lasts an hour, that this isn't going to be helpful for you because you're not going to need to rely on fat. You've got enough carbohydrate in your body for the entire race. But if you're trying to do a marathon or an Ironman, something like that, then you need to rely on fat utilization. So that's where this training comes in really useful. The other good reason to do fasted training is that because we're burning more fat, is if we're looking to lose some weight, so if we're looking to reduce our body fat percentage, then doing fasted training is a good way for burning fat rather than burning carbohydrates. If we eat a load of carbohydrates and then we go train, we're mostly going to burn the carbohydrates that we're processing. And if we want to focus on reducing that body fat percentage, then fasted training is a good idea for that. So what are the disadvantages of fasted training? Probably worth to say that if you don't have much energy, you might be feeling a bit grumpy. It's not always fun. The body cannot burn fat at higher intensities. So in terms of, again, if you're doing something like a 5K and a 10K, fat is not really going to be useful here because you need to keep your heart rate low in order to burn fat. So if all you do is fasted training and learn to burn fat, you're going to lose a lot of your top end speed. So all of the training, because we've only got fat and fat is quite slow to release, all of the fasted training we do needs to be quite easy training. So we're talking about kind of zone 2 training, so easy runs, easy bike rides. In order to burn that fat, that's the most intensity we can do. Otherwise, the body's going to try and use the carbohydrate stores. It's not going to have any, and it's going to be unpleasant. So you need to keep the workouts nice and easy. Easy runs, easy cycles, easy swims, all of that. And you also want to make sure that you do some of your training with carbs. So if you're going to introduce fasted training, do a bit of fasted training, but also do plenty of training with carbohydrates, because as we've discussed, if you did all of your training fasted, your body would forget how to utilize carbohydrates, and therefore you would actually lose all of that top end speed. So it's good to introduce a bit of fasted training to get those fat burning going, but don't make sure the body doesn't forget how to use carbohydrates, because it's going to use those at any distance as well. And so there's this idea of train low, race high. So you might want to do some training with low levels of carbohydrates because you fasted, but when we're racing, we always want to be loaded with as much carbohydrate as possible, because that's never bad in a race. It's also really important to remember that the body needs to recover. So even if you're doing fasted training, and in fact, especially if you're doing fasted training, when you come back, you want to hydrate, you want to eat a lot of protein and carbohydrates to allow those muscles to reuptake that carbohydrate, get that energy back in so that they can get on with the job of recovery. So in summary, fasted training can be a great way of teaching the body to utilize fat and burn some more fat. It's predominantly for longer duration events, so things like marathons and long format triathlon and long bike rides. That's where it's really useful. It's not useful for the shorter stuff because we want to be using carbohydrates because the energy there is much faster. And if you do it, make sure that you are getting the nutrition in after your workout to allow your muscles to recover. Hopefully that was useful. If so, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you want more advice on endurance sport, running, nutrition, then hit the subscribe button, because that's what my channel is all about, and I would love to see you in another video.